This message comes from U.S. Bank. Simplify how you do business with Business Essentials, a powerful combination of no monthly maintenance fee checking and card payment processing. Deposit products are offered by U.S. Bank National Association, member FDIC.
One of the folks who I talked to told me that he was so insecure about being a ginger that he was looking for any way to stop it. And rather than dyeing his hair, I suppose, he went for melanotan. But then he said he also had a friend who accidentally took too much melanotan, and people started reading him as being a different race than he was.
There's an episode about Seinfeld about this. When Kramer got in the tanning bed and he stayed in too long, scared his new black girlfriend's family. So I'd be very curious to see how that plays out in Silicon Valley. Over the past few years, Silicon Valley has become more than just the birthplace of groundbreaking technology. It's also a hub of biohacking. According to WebMD, biohacking is making changes to your body or lifestyle to improve something about yourself, like your health, brain power, or athletic ability. So eat a balanced diet, get sleep, move your body. Simple, right? But biohacking is also notorious for bizarre hacks at best and medical misinformation at worst. Think tech giant Brian Johnson using his own son's blood to crack the fountain of youth. But that hasn't stopped people from pushing the limits of the human body. In fact, what if I told you the rise of prescription injectables like Ozempic may have some biohackers turning to the unregulated injectable market? And to help me out, we've got Jasmine Sun, an independent journalist who writes a Substack newsletter about Silicon Valley culture.
Thanks for having us on.
And Karen Maschke, editor-in-chief of Ethics and Human Research, a journal from the Hastings Center for Bioethics, an independent research center.
Thank you very much.
Sound freaky? Don't worry, I got you. Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. I actually want to start with you, Jasmine. Can you set the scene for us? Like, what is the new trend making its way through Silicon Valley? And what is it hoping to hack?
Right. So I recently wrote a piece for the New York Times on the rise of quote-unquote Chinese peptides in Silicon Valley, which is a biohacking trend that's exploded throughout 2025. I think I first saw it as a meme and people talking about it on Twitter, on X. And then I mentioned it in real life and started meeting real life people in San Francisco who said, oh yeah, I am buying off-label injectables from Chinese manufacturers off the internet, mixing them myself with vials of bacteriostatic water in my home and injecting them into my body. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this is something that people are actually doing. And so what's happened is that first, I think it did start with the explosion of GLP-1s, of Ozempic, where folks became interested in these weight loss drugs, started looking for cheaper ways to get them. For example, through these off-market suppliers who are selling semaglutide as research chemicals rather than for human use purposes.
And I want to note here that the P in GLP-1, that stands for peptide.
Right. And once people started realizing you could get cheap peptides, Ozempic is a type of peptide, from the research chemical market, biohackers started exploring what other sorts of magic pills might there be out there. If we can do one shot for weight loss, maybe we can do another shot for sleep, another shot for happiness, another shot for getting smarter and more productive. And so people have started experimenting with all sorts of injectable peptides. Again, the vast majority of them having no human clinical trial evidence, with the exception of the GLP-1s.
When I first came across your story, I was like scanning, scraping the inside of my brain, trying to remember the last science class I took in 2004. For those of us who don't know or simply may not remember, what are peptides?
Yeah, so peptides are a pretty broad class of chemical. It's basically a short chain of amino acids. So think like a mini baby protein. A lot of peptides occur naturally in the body. So oxytocin or insulin is a type of peptide. Of course, that's one that we do have lots of evidence for. But I think because it is such a broad category, people have been extrapolating from the success of proven peptides like insulin or ones like semaglutide, GLP-1s, to all sorts of these other amino acids where we haven't really studied the effects. We're not exactly sure how they work, but folks are trying all sorts of things.
Okay, so Karen, as a bioethicist, can you break down what makes biohacking so compelling to people, like especially in the tech space?
I think there's been a long-standing issue for 50 years or more in this country about people thinking that regulations are too strict, that when they want to do something to their body, they should be able to do it. And some of that came out of the patient advocacy movement back in the 1940s through the 1960s, and is still prevalent today in the patient advocacy movement, that science moves too slow. We have unmet needs, meaning we don't have the right kinds of drugs to cure people or make them better. And that there's an urgency to people who are really, really sick. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of thinking has been translated into a lot of these other populations who are not necessarily sick, but want to be able to do something to enhance their body. And enhancement can take all kinds of forms. It can take it through peptides. You can enhance your body by doing personalized gene editing, which has been done by biohackers. And so it's a thought process and a certain kind of approach to helping myself and not wanting regulators and doctors to get in the way.
Karen, when you bring up this idea that like regulations take too long, or, you know, it's too difficult to be able to have access to the things that you feel that you might need, or people might feel that they need to be able to like change their body or their life in the way that they want to. It makes me think of something that one of your sources, Jasmine, said in your article. They said that these peptides, there was a certain peptide that they were discussing, I believe it was oxytocin, and they described it as like Ozempic for autism. What does it say about both this specific culture that you're looking into in Silicon Valley, but also our American sort of culture and our attitudes about bodies and health more broadly, that Ozempic is being used as a kind of shorthand term for like
totally
a very simple quick fix?
Yeah, I think that was a fascinating turn of phrase. It caught my eye too.
Yeah.
So I think that when people see that a technology, whether it's a pharmaceutical like Ozempic, or whether it's even something like you can just DoorDash food to your door instead of going out and getting it, that is very, very appealing. I think a lot of folks, especially very busy people, whether because they are a mom juggling a bunch of kids or some tech founder with like a really intense job, they're always sort of in this mode of trying to figure out, how can I save more time? How can I achieve these aspirational lifestyles, like to look a certain way or to feel a certain way without as much time, as much cost, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think the interest in, if Ozempic feels like this magical weight loss drug, you can instantly, lose 50 pounds or whatever, people are very interested in, oh, what if oxytocin could help me instantly feel connection with other people and make friends, even though it's hard to make friends? Or what if this other drug will help me get tanner so I don't have to go in the sun? I can just take melanotan and inject it, and then I'm going to get a suntan automatically.
I can't lie. I would be laughing very heartily the day that really goes wrong. For a person who doesn't want to live that life. But I mean, aside from that, which is like a very specific circumstance that I personally find hilarious, Karen, what are some of the concerns, like the real concerns with biohacking?
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, which regulates the sale and marketing of medical products, was created specifically because of the kinds of things that are happening now. In the 1800s and the first part of the 20th century, people were selling potions. Sometimes they were called elixirs, and they were sold just exactly as Jasmine described them, as the magic pill. And they were sold by women who were putting together potions in their kitchen. They were sold by men who were creating these small little startup entrepreneurial companies, and people died. That was a key issue. And some children died, in fact, in this historical moment. And so the U.S. Congress decided, we need to have some regulation about what is sold to people. It was often referred to as snake oil. And at that time, in the mid-20th century, there was also the scientific movement. The scientific system itself was becoming very sophisticated in terms of how we study what works in humans and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials started to emerge in the 1950s. It is now considered for a long time the gold standard of the kind of evidence you need for someone to say, I have a product that works this way with this safety and efficacy profile, and I want to sell it to the U.S. public. And the Food and Drug Administration was created to be that buffer, to get things out that have been shown through a scientific process to be relatively safe and effective. And so I'm concerned in terms of the work I do and in bioethics, there is an ethical issue about the use of products that don't have good evidence because they have a harm factor. And if I'm selling them or promoting them to other people, that raises questions about the issue of harm and benefit. And if things aren't benefiting people, but they're harming them, then we have, societal issues. And especially we don't know if children are getting these, adolescents, if they're going on the black market. What is the social responsibility that they have? Do they have a social responsibility to be careful how they promote these products?
It's interesting. I don't know. I can understand why a young person would be invested in a rave review of a Chinese peptide or something like that. But what is it about like adults that are making them susceptible to this? What is driving people to reconsider what they think is safe?
Yeah, I think Jasmine raised some of that in terms of the culture indirectly. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in various work populations to be successful. And in that culture in Silicon Valley, it often means working long hours, devoting yourself to a certain company if you're working for a company or if you're starting up a company. And so there's immense pressure to look a certain way, to act a certain way. Jasmine raised it in terms of the social interaction factor. And I think that pressure is, it's internalized. And as a woman, I can say growing up in a culture in the 20th century of what that meant, internalizing how you should look and talk and approach people. It's a cultural phenomenon that I think people are seeking ways to meet these standards.
Yeah, I think what Karen said is definitely one of the big factors. There's another trend this summer in Silicon Valley, the 996 trend.
Please, yes, talk about this. Please talk about this.
It is a new work culture trend of working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, borrowed from the Chinese tech culture of the 2010s, but which was so extreme that even the Chinese government made it illegal for companies to mandate 996. But a lot of Silicon Valley startups have started embracing the sort of hustle of the 996 culture. So one is just like, we are in a period where I think hustle culture is back in. People are celebrating these long hours. And as one of my sources said, why be consistent at the gym when I could work 16 hours straight at my research job? I think another factor too has to do with the way that Silicon Valley thinks about the establishment, thinks about institutions, and thinks about themselves. So I think a lot of folks who are in the tech community really pride themselves on feeling like they are on the frontier, like they can figure things out themselves. And so this sort of quote unquote do your own research mode of approaching medicine is really appealing. The idea is like, the FDA is so slow. It takes like 10 years to do all these studies. They're really risk averse because they're really worried about the downsides. But these folks might think, well, I'm a pretty smart person. I have a computer science degree. I'm good at using ChatGPT to do research. I've built a company from scratch in a field where no one told me I could do it before. So like, why couldn't I also take my health into my own hands? And so I think also the very risk tolerant culture, the very, I'm a frontiersman, like I can figure out stuff before the institutions can culture also makes people a lot more comfortable with exploring, these unregulated drugs. I think several founders who I spoke to who are using these peptides literally compared their risk tolerance around health to their risk tolerance around their companies. They said, I know there are downsides. I know it could go wrong, but I'm somebody who is willing to take the risk because sometimes the upside is worth it.
Coming up,
they see technology not just as a way to make their human lives more efficient, but actually as a way to transcend the limitations of the human body, to sort of merge with the machine and become more than our, fleshy selves.
More with Jasmine and Karen after the break.
This message comes from Whole Foods Market. Follow your wellness goals and save big with sales on supplements and vitamins. Explore an abundance of high-quality multivitamins, probiotics, and protein powders. Keep good habits going strong. Cook homemade meals featuring sustainable wild-caught sockeye salmon and many more delicious and lean protein options. For wellness when you need it, shop Smart Meal shortcuts to stay motivated, like ready-to-eat salad kits. Shop all things wellness at Whole Foods Market.
This message comes from LinkedIn, who knows how even one hiring nightmare can ruin your small business dreams. That's why LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant uses insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a personalized shortlist of the best applicants, and even finds candidates you would have otherwise missed, so you can hire right the first time. Start hiring with LinkedIn and post your job for free today at linkedin.com/NPR.
This message comes from Jerry. Are you tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/NPR today.
One of the things I've been thinking about, though, biohacking is a term I've heard for a long time. And the trends have changed, from eating a lot of protein and maybe getting really into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or applying the lessons of the 4-Hour Body, which is a book written by Tim Ferriss, I believe in 2010, that was all about using, basically almost like the minimum effort to get maximum result. But that to me felt like it was very much about efficiency. I wonder, though, what do you think is undergirding these trends now? What's the desire from Silicon Valley right now?
I think this might be an opportunity to think about for some of the more radical peptide users, which, to be clear, is not all of them. Plenty of people are just looking for the efficiency or the weight loss benefits or whatever. But there are some folks, like one of the women I interviewed, who are more on the quote-unquote transhumanist side of things, where they see technology not just as a way to make their human lives more efficient, but actually as a way to transcend the limitations of the human body, to sort of merge with the machine and become more than our, fleshy selves. So this woman, Brooke Bowman, I interviewed, she told me she actually had an RFID chip, microchip, implanted in her hand at a human augmentation dance party,
yes.
So that theoretically, when someone moved their phone near her hand, they could scan her Telegram profile and then message her. Unfortunately, the dance party chip was implanted too deep, so it does not work.
As I imagine it, a chip you get implanted in your body at a dance party, I could see that going left. But yeah, go ahead.
I know, people used to get flash tattoos. Now they do this. But I do think that shows the sort of more radical side of this Silicon Valley biohacking thinking, where it crosses over to not just let me use this technology as a tool, but I am going to merge with a machine, and together we are going to become more than human, right? And so I think especially with AI also taking over, Silicon Valley and the world, people are sort of thinking, maybe it is possible to build technologies that are smarter than we are, that are more powerful than we are. And I think that has increased interest in these biohacking trends as well.
Well, it makes me think about something else that I've seen in the ether recently. The Cut recently put out an article around friction maxing. This is an essay written by Catherine Jazer Morton, who's been on the show before a couple of times. She's phenomenal. But she described friction maxing, her term. It's kind of like foregoing the convenience of tech to actually engage with life. For example, not using ChatGPT to make your grocery list, or not sharing your location with your family, or requiring that your family share their location with you so that you actually have to go, hey, where are you? Which invites friction, right? I wonder, is there an argument to be made that some of these trends are foregoing or are selling the promise that we can forego the expected challenges of human life? Karen, what do you think?
I agree. The whole issue, I was thinking as Jasmine was talking, in bioethics and ethical circles, there's been long discussions about transhumanism and the concept of what it means to be a human. And what it means to be a human means, things get messy. We live on a planet in a universe that we don't really know much about, even after thousands of years of exploration. And we try to do the best we can. And we still don't know about how the human body works after thousands of years of studying the human body. And we've got scientists who've won Nobel Prizes for all kinds of things. And yet we still haven't, quote, cured cancer.
We haven't even cured the common cold.
Absolutely right. We have things that make it feel better. But I think this is a real important issue about a culture that doesn't want to be messy, doesn't want to wait for scientists to do the right kind of studies, wants to take shortcuts. And I think shortcuts are good sometimes. I take shortcuts all the time, and we all do in our lives. but not wanting to engage with people in a way that can be uncomfortable or that can force us to actually look people in the eye and maybe touch people and touch things. That idea might be onto something about what it means to have a life of friction. It's not always pleasant, but sometimes it has meaningful consequences in the long term.
Jasmine, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely somewhat of two minds about it, because I don't want to romanticize friction for its own sake. Like I'm nearsighted. I have contact lenses. I'm imagining a world before my contact lenses when I couldn't see anything, and people might just say, the friction of having to get really close to that sign to see it, So I am very grateful for many of the medical technologies that have improved my life. But I do think that there is a question of, what are you trading off? Like, we can talk about Ozempic, right? Like, if you think that Ozempic is a substitute for, say, having a movement practice in your life, a substitute for going on runs with your friends or joining a sports team or something, like, what are you trading off there, right? Because it's not actually a one-to-one substitute. And when you give up the friction of, say, joining a sports team, you're also giving up the social benefits. You're giving up maybe some vitamin D, the muscle growth, the mobility exercises that you're doing. So I think sometimes when people are choosing technological shortcuts to reduce friction, they're also missing out on a lot of the benefits that the more frictionful activity might give them. And so I think that's the question that I'd prompt people to think about, is not just like, it's sometimes you do want to take the shortcut, like Karen said, but what are you actually giving up when you do that?
That's such an interesting way to think about that. Oh my gosh. I am so happy to start the year off with this conversation. Thank you both so much. I really learned a lot today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to have been a part of this. Thank you.
That was independent journalist Jasmine Sun, who writes a Substack newsletter about Silicon Valley culture, and Karen Maschke, editor-in-chief of Ethics and Human Research, a journal from the Hastings Center for Bioethics, an independent research center. And to all of you listening, I want you to know that I see all these sweet messages you've been leaving me. I may be keeping my peace by turning off notifications on my phone, but I want you to know that my whole team and I read every message you leave in the comments and reviews. One of y'all said that you look forward to every episode and literally feel smarter each time you listen. Another said that this show has been a, quote, lighthouse in the storm. Another said that every morning you check to see if there is a new episode of this show. If you relate to any of this, please rate and review the show wherever you're listening. It helps grow our community and is one of the easiest ways for you and me to interact. Thank you for all the sweet notes, and I can't wait to hear from you soon. Love y'all. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from MIDI Health. Co-founders Joanna Strober and Dr. Kathleen Jordan discuss why they started a virtual care platform to empower and educate women in perimenopause and menopause.
Historically, perimenopause and menopause have been very stigmatizing. So people haven't wanted to admit that they're in perimenopause and menopause, as though it was like embarrassing, which is insane. It's just something happening to your body, right? But we've been embarrassed about it. So one of the things that we're trying to do is destigmatize these topics. Perimenopause and menopause are just women's health. So what we try to do is we try to educate women all the time. Maybe it's your hormones, and we would like to help you.
Yeah, and I find women actually want to talk about it. It's one of the things they always comment at MIDI is that they finally feel heard. One of the ways that women find MIDI is actually from other women. That's actually a common way that people find us, and I think it's meaningful.
Discover how MIDI can help care for you at joinmidi.com.
This message comes from Instacart. It's Sunday, 5 p.m. You had a nonstop weekend. You're running on empty, and so is your fridge. You're in the trenches of the Sunday scaries. You don't have it in you to go to the store, but this is your reminder. You don't have to. You can get everything you need delivered through Instacart so that you can get what you really need. More time to do whatever you want. Instacart, for one less Sunday scary.